Hi everyone! So in this video I wanna go over my way of doing the arms pull when you're boosting Scarlet Monastery. In this video I'm going to go through how I pull the stuffs, how I kill them, my gear and my talents. I'm also going to mention just briefly now that these two mobs in the beginning you should kill, partly because low levels are gonna pull them by just entering the dungeons, and if things are going south when you're trying to kill off the dungeon, you know, the big pull, if you have a healer, maybe he or she could sneak in and just give you a few heals. So it could be very helpful. So what we're gonna do now is quickly jump over and look at my gear and my talents before we continue looking at this actual run. Okay, so we're first gonna start off with Frost and then Arcane. I'm just gonna briefly go through this. We're gonna go for Frost Warding, partly because it increases your frost resistance from ice armor, and because it gives your Frost Ward a 20% chance to reflect the frost spells. And normally you have like a, I don't know, maybe a 1% chance of getting slowed and hit by a Frostbolt in Cathedral, but if you have a 20% chance to reflect those frost spells, then it's gonna be a 0.8% chance, so it could definitely save your life every now and then. We're gonna go Elemental Precision for some hits. And then it's pretty much just a standard Blizzard AoE grinding spec up until here. So now it's not obvious where you should put your talents. Beside that, you obviously never should take Frostbite for this, because then the Blizzard slow or your Ice Armor slow can just randomly freeze targets solid and you can't have a gathered pack and things are just not gonna work out. You're choosing between Ice Shards, Shatter and Improved Cone of Cold, and what I'm gonna take is Shatter and 2 points in Improved Cone of Cold. This allows me to do a like Frost Nova, Flame Strike, Cone of Cold combination for a lot of damage. And then also Ice Barrier, that's why we're going 31 points in Frost. Next up, Arcane. This one just to reduce targets' resistances and some hit chance for your Arcane Explosion. Magic Absorption, 5 out of 5, nevertheless. This is what makes this entire boosting thing viable, or like possible even. Partly those 10 resistances are worth a lot, and also resisting a spell giving you 5% mana and a 1 second cooldown, you're gonna be taking a lot of spell hits, so essentially you're going to be receiving 5% of your total mana every second. And if you have 6000 mana, that's 300 mana per second. And that is what makes this possible, okay? It doesn't matter how much intellect you have really, because there's no way you could do these pulls without going if you didn't have magic absorption. So 5 out of 5 in that. Every mage that I've seen that hasn't gone 5 out of 5, they fail. Despite how, no matter how good their gear is. We're gonna go, you really can pick and choose whatever you want with your remaining 10 points. I suppose you could go down to Ignite to do some Frost Nova, Flame Strike, Cone of Cold combinations and apply that, but I'm going to go Magic Attunement, Arcane Resilience, Arcane Concentration and Improved Mana Shields. This one is gonna save you a bunch of mana when you're only using Mana Shield. Whenever you do get hit by spells, you want to have Damp Magic up, because then you basically don't take any damage from them anyway. And it's also important to note that Mana Shield only protects you from physical attacks and not from spells, so if a spell hits you, it's just gonna go straight through your Mana Shield. Your Ice Barrier and your wards, that is Frost Ward and Fire Ward, will still protect you, but Mana Shield won't, and sometimes that's the only thing you have because Mana Shield has no cooldown. And then we also go Arcane Resilience because a mage has like 2.5 armor, so just a slight bonus, like I think I'll get 150 more armor, actually makes quite a difference. That's a couple of percentages right there. So this is the build I'm using. There are some parts, basically these 3 talents, that you can pick and choose the way you like. Besides that, I think that this is pretty much the best spec you can grab, and with this out of the way, we're going to look at which gear I'm using. If you're gonna do raids or dungeons, then my gear is very poor, but for doing boosting, it definitely works out just fine. So for my head, I just have a Off the Eagle, Intellect, Stamina, that's 2 of the 3 stats you need for this, Stamina being more important than Intellect. my neck is just a good neck I picked up at level 38, so... And then we have the necropile pieces. Just a cloak, a cape with of the eagle stats and +5 resistances. Make sure to get that enchant. That chest I just picked up when I did a RFD run. I wanted to see if I could do a good AoE grind out of it. I couldn't, but I got that one, and I chose between this one and a 16 intellect, 16 stamina of the eagle chest, and because you get almost all your mana from that magic absorption talent, I decided that 4 stamina was worth more than 6 intellect. Another necropile piece, they are very important. You grab them on Scholomance. The first thing I did when I was like even 58, I think, was starting to spam Scholomance to grab the 4 pieces. It took me like 8 runs, so I hate Scholomance now, but they're really good. You should go for 5 pieces if you can, because all the necropile pieces have a good amount of intellect and stamina. And even though spell power is almost worthless, it's not entirely worthless, so that's just a nice bonus to have from the 5 piece. However, it's the 4 piece set bonus with the +15 to all resistances that you're after. And then that dagger is very good, but not for this. However, it does have 8 intellect, that offhand 17 intellect and 6 stamina. That wand, well, it's basically gear I got in Scholomance. Trinkets, that one is actually good for Armory, because it has 10 fire resistance. That one is obviously not good for anything besides picking up Scourge tokens. As for your rings, you should have 2 rings with fire resistance and 2 rings with frost resistance. I like +18, because on my server at least, it's a good balance between how much they cost and how much you get from them. Like, to get a +20 ring, I would probably have to add another 100 gold per ring, and 4 more resistance, I don't think that's worth for 200 gold, so I bought +18 rings. Some more necropile. Enchant minor speed. It's so cheap, it makes such a big difference. It might be one of the things that makes this possible, or at least much easier. Some more necropile. I got that sash from my first and only arena run, that is why I have it. It has okay stats, and that spell hit chance is of course helpful, but if you don't have that one, just go for some off the eagle piece. And those gloves are just something I found inside Scholomance in a random corner somewhere, being all dusty. It has some intellect, it has some stamina. Like I said, spell power is just almost worthless, not entirely. It's like one of your last priorities, so I just went with them. And that is my gear. As you can see, I'm currently at 76 fire resistance. In my bag, I have a head. There are my frost resistance ring. I have a head with 24 fire resistance. The reason I have this head with fire but not with frost is because my ice armor gives me a whole bunch of frost resistance as well. So when I equip my frost resistance gear, I think I arrive at like, wait, that's 36 plus 49, is it 85? I think it is. Good enough, basically, but I won't have that much, I think, if I don't equip that head. Because I still want to use ice armor. I could have used mage armor, but the slow from ice armor is just worth way too much. And so this is the gear that I'm using when doing this. You don't need, let's say, much better gear, really. It's like the sum of your skill and your gear is what needs to be good enough. So if you're very skilled and you've done this 100 times, you don't really need that good gear. And if you're very new to this, having really good gear obviously helps you a lot. But yeah, you don't really need that amazing gear to do this. So with all this out of the way, we're gonna go back to the actual run of arms. We've just finished off those 2 guys, and you might not notice it, but I just realized that this is another video of an arms run, but it doesn't matter, it's still the same. You see, I have other people in the group right now. So what you want to do now is make your way to the end of the dungeon and don't pull anything on your way there. If you do that, you're either gonna have to saddle for every mob between that mob that you just pulled on the entrance, or you're just gonna have to go and reset. Or maybe if you're very close to the entrance, you could just polymorph that one mob, supposing it's just one mob. There is just one pack that you can't run through in the instance, and that is these 3 mobs here. Just gonna go back a little bit. You either blink like there, or you go behind the cannons like I do this time in an attempt to, you know, rush ahead of that patrol, which I don't do. But just wait, don't pull it. And now we keep running. I think there are maybe 2 or 3 of those patrols, all are casters. They're very easy to get by. Just be a bit careful so you don't pull things by mistake. Okay, so what we're going to do now is buff up our final buffs, create my mana ruby, I already had one, I just noticed, and drink up. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull the pack furthest in, those defenders and boys, that's those spicy boys. And we're gonna try and keep the worm as collected as possible and make sure to equip your fire resistance gear. I just realized that I don't have it equipped, at least not the head. And like I said, we're gonna try and keep this snake of mobs that's chasing me as compact as possible by using a lot of rank 1 Blizzard, a lot of rank 1 Frost Nova, and a lot of rank 1 Cone of Cold. It's gonna become obvious later why you wanna keep them as collected as possible, but this is really the key to managing Arms pull, because Arms is definitely the harder one out of Arms and Cathedral, and the reason for that is that you have mobs called, well, partly defenders that interrupt you, but also protectors that are gonna stop and heal no matter if they've taken damage or not, because I've tried doing these pulls without using any type of damaging abilities, and the protectors are still just gonna randomly stop and heal themselves. And what that is gonna give you problems with is when you've ice blocked, you want all mobs to have gathered around you so you can just Frost Nova them, but if the protectors have been randomly healing, they're gonna fall behind, you're gonna have a very long snake of mobs after you, and basically your ice block won't be long enough to allow everything to gather around you, and then you're gonna have mobs just eating away your shields, giving you pushback, maybe even silencing you when you're trying to Blizzard. So when you're here, right, just before you activate Ice Block, make sure to have all shields up and that they're quite fresh, so that like you don't want Ice Barrier to have like 2 more points of absorption left. And as you noticed, I ran like a fish hook, something like that, so the mobs would have time to gather up, like the very late protectors should also have time to make it. And what you want to do now is keep your eye on any eventual mobs that are gonna pop out from here, and if you have a protector that's gonna come in late, what you want to do is use a limited invulnerability potion, because that's gonna give you another 5 seconds to allow him to get to you. And then when you Frost Nova, you'll have the opportunity to collect everything, and it's very important to not have mobs hitting you all the time. However, I was successful in my attempt to slow the snake and make it short and fat, and so, with Frost Nova, this is where I mess up. So that mob just broke early, and I managed to lose a second because I wasn't quick enough with starting the Blizzard. Now, if I would have just been a second quicker, then that mob would still have been frozen in place, and then she wouldn't have started running at me prior to everyone else. And you're gonna see very soon how big of a problem that's going to be, just a single defender. So you use your max rank Blizzard, you backpedal a little bit, apply the next one. There I just got silenced. And that's gonna cause a 8-second silence on all frost spells, so you can't Nova them, you can't Cone of Cold them, you can't Blizzard them. You can't even... You actually can Ice Block, it seems like. Or probably not, but Ice Block is gonna be the way I save this. So what I do now is that I'm gonna apply my shield, and I'm gonna try to go for a Frost Nova on the whole pack. And it wasn't very successful, so I reapply my shield. I used Cold Snap, reapplied all my shields. I realized that this isn't working out, so what I'm gonna do is... Or wait, here is this Cold Snap. Reapply all my shields, and I'm going to go for a second Ice Block right here. Let every mob gather up on me, and then I'm going to strafe to the left, because there it seemed quite empty, reapply all my shields, and even though I don't have enough mana for max rank Blizzard, you can just use rank 1 and make sure to gather them up. And right now things are looking very positive for me. There I have enough mana to use max rank, and what you want to do in a situation like this, when they are starting to run away, is go in and Frost Nova them again. Ideally, you keep almost every mob still collected, and then you can like Flame Strike, Cone of Cold them and just finish everything off. Or you do like I did and kill almost everything with a Blizzard. This is almost an ideal pull, to be honest. It's going pretty smooth, and this is kind of what you're aiming for. Maybe not getting silenced earlier in the run, but all things considered, it's a very smooth run. Now what I like to do here is just click my macro that tells people to come in and loot while I'm finishing the last ones off. So this is almost the ideal pull, and what we're gonna do now is just, we're gonna look at one more, let's say one more killing part of another clip so I can show you another way of doing it. Just a second. Okay, so all shields are up, I've done my fish hook and I'm using my ice block, and I just quickly gonna look down the hallway, no mobs are coming, break it, Frost Nova, and everything just works out nice here. No mobs resist, I'm gonna get my Blizzard off in good time. As you can see, or maybe noticed, a defender broke early, but because I was so quick with my Blizzard, that didn't really matter. And we're just gonna keep Blizzarding them. Ideally, you want to get 3 Blizzards off and then you Frost Nova just to get the most damage out. I'm only getting off 2 here, it doesn't really matter because it's gonna work out great for me anyway. And so we just keep Blizzarding them down. Try and keep up as many shields as you can, or at least Fire Ward and Ice Armor. Like I said earlier, Mana Shield does not absorb fire damage, or any kind of spell damage, so that could be worth noting. And as you can see here, things just worked out pretty well. I still have a lot of health and a decent amount of mana. Most mobs are dead, so we can just spam some Arcane Explosion. And you maybe not noticed that, but I just got slightly stuck on the arms of this guy. That is something that you need to be aware about, that you can get stuck on the target dummies, like that shield, that hand, that these, whatever those are, those clubs. And that is also something that's gonna kill you. You're just gonna get randomly stuck, don't have any idea what's going on, and then you would have run into one of these. So just be aware that that is a thing that can happen. I just keep going with the Cone of Cold and kite them, apply my shields. If like you want to use Ice Berry if you have it, because Mana Shield costs mana, but it's better to be alive than to have a bunch of mana and then die, so. And here we go. Okay, I think I have showed you kind of how to do a Armory run. To just recap, get to the end, try and keep the snake as fat as possible when you're pulling everything. Have some limited and vulnerability potions, so that if things go bad, that you can just use one of them and let everyone gather around you before you Frost Nova. Besides that, you know, just practice and practice and practice. That's how it's done. So I think I've said everything I want to say in this video. For the next video I might try and learn the Marudon pull and see if I can do some fun things with that one, maybe a little quirk. I obviously didn't come up with the Scarlet Monastery farms. This is just my way of doing the arms version. Someone else somewhere somehow figured it out that you can do this, and it's very popular among mages. You can make so much gold. But either way, I hope that this could help you when you're trying to solo boost the arms runs. I hope you found it interesting. Like if you enjoyed, and subscribe for whatever video I'm gonna pop out the next time. See ya!